Hello, my name is Tinne from Victoria Designs, and if you like cute things and if you like Gothic things all at the same time, you might like our Gothic Butterfly kit. Add dark materials for a darker look and add lighter materials for a sweeter, softer look. And the latter is exactly what Alexandra did when she made an amazing tutorial for a journal. I recommend this tutorial for more experienced crafters because this tutorial is perfect for you if you love a challenge, measuring, stitching, decorative hand sewing, and last but not least, finishing your project professionally. Alexandra doesn't show, for example, basic steps like building and sewing signatures. But if you're already quite an experienced crafter and you really want to level up your craft, this tutorial has so many tips and tricks and ideas for you. It's amazing. Alexandra also uses a lot of machine sewing in this tutorial. This is optional because there's nothing that a really strong glue can't do, but it's definitely worth it for the strength and for the look. And I do have a tutorial for basic machine sewing for crafts. I'll put a link below. And if you think I don't have this or that tool or I can't do this, does that mean this tutorial is not for me? Oh no, you can just take the parts that you like and you can leave out the parts that are not for you. Or not yet. Just by watching this tutorial alone, you will get so many pro tips, tricks and ideas. It is like a mini workshop. And like always, if Gothic butterflies are not your cup of tea, you can use totally different printables and papers to make this project. And also, if you do like Gothic butterflies, you can not only make this project with it, you can make many other craft projects with it from tutorials on YouTube or from our channel. If you like to see more of Alexandra's amazing crafts and tutorials, head on over to her channel, the link is below. And if you would like to discover this beautiful Gothic Butterflies kit in our Etsy shop for more information, there's a link for that below as well. And now here's Alexandra. Enjoy!
Hello everyone and welcome. My name is Alexandra and today I'm here with a new tutorial for creating a journal using one of the newly released digital paper collections from Victoria Designs, which is called Gothic Butterflies. You can see that my journal is quite far from being a proper Gothic, but I guess we never know where our inspiration can take you, and I could relate more to the pink tones in this collection, so my journal turned out to be more feminine. So I'm going to show you how it looks, and then I will flip through the pages, maybe stopping a video for a few seconds to explain more things or provide you with more details where I think they're needed. Otherwise, it will be quite flip through with some nice music in the background. So let's begin. First of all, this is how it looks like. You can see that the pages of the journal are covered with these flaps on 3 sides, and then on the 4th side we of course have the spine. I have added some beads and stitched pattern to the spine. I have added this butterfly embellishment to the spine on the pin, and that's how the back looks like. This is one of the butterflies from the paper collection, which I covered with Mod Podge. That's why it is so shiny. Then I glued it down to the layer of this pink corduroy that I used on the spine of the journal, and then I glued another piece of fabric to the back, and this one is just some cotton ivory fabric. And then I used a very tiny zigzag stitch on my sewing machine in order to connect all of the layers together. Then I added an eyelet in there, and here my beautiful unique embellishment for the spine of the journal is ready. The stamped word says original, and I think it looks really nice there. So I have added some seed beads to the spine. This is how the back looks like. You can see the brads here because they hold the flaps in place. And my journal is being closed with the help of the seam binding ribbon. This is how I decided to embellish the front cover of the journal. We have a few elements that I fussy cut out of the paper collection, and I have also added some circles that I die cut out of gold foil paper. I have added some gold brads in there for more accents. And let's have a look inside. This is how it looks right when you open it. We have the flaps and all the pages of the journal in here. And on the inside of the front cover, we have a panel with 2 acetate pockets. One of the pockets is intended for larger cards and paper layers, and then the second pocket can hold smaller ephemera pieces or cards. The cards that I have here have been created with the help of the frame die, besides the craft cardstock here and some stamped beach cardstock, I guess. There is also a layer of pattern paper from the collection. And for making these, I have used some leftover pieces that I had after finishing the rest of the journal. So here we have these flaps that we will open up and unfold. And that's the pages of our journal. There are 3 signatures in it. In the back cover on the inside, we have these places for pens. I have never created anything like that, and I thought it could be fun to try something like this. So you can add pencils and pens and maybe even a ruler in here. And then everything will be held nicely in the journal. Nothing will fall out. So I really like this. There is enough of room to accommodate all those pens. Let me just take the pens out for now, because we will be flipping through the pages of the journal, and it will be more convenient if this section is a bit more flat. So yeah, I have 3 signatures in here, and for creating them, I have used not only the digital printed papers from the paper collection, but also some tea stain papers and some other sorts of papers that I had to tie them in terms of style and color to the rest of the pages in the collection. I have added some stenciling and stamping. I have also used various die cut elements. Let me just show you all the pages and stop the video where I feel like I need to explain more. I hope you enjoy looking through the pages together with me. I have a few pages that I printed on photo paper, and this is a, I guess, 6 by 4 inches size of the photo paper. Yeah, I really like how they turned out. I have never done that, and that's the first time, so I really like how it looks. I have added maybe 3 or 4 of those throughout the pages, and they look really nice. In the center of each one of the 3 signatures, I have created sort of a pocket using just a page from a smaller notebook, and I glued the 2 edges of both of these pages together in order to create a pocket. And then the threads that I used for stitching the signature onto the spine are actually covered with these pages. They're right there on the inside. So I really like how finished it looks. This was the first signature. I also want to say a few words about embellishing your signatures in general. When you start to work with the collection, look at the colors that the pages have. Like here, we have lots of purples and pinks and some grays too. So these are the colors that I tried to use when I added my stenciling and stamping to the pages. You can also look at the graphics on the pages and see which dies you might have in your stash that go well together with those images. So for example, here, of course, we have lots of butterflies. We have some clocks here and there. We have some keys. Some flourishes. So all those are the elements that I tried to find in the collection of the dies that I have and use it on the pages. When I get down to embellish the pages of my journal, I spread in front of me a whole bunch of fussy cut out elements and also die cut elements. I try to create additional embellishments for my pages and not only use the straightforward fussy cut pieces that the collection provides, although it provides quite a lot of elements to work with. So you can see that I have here a wide selection of things to work with, and it's really nice when you have everything in front of you so that it's easier for you to see everything better and pick the things that you want to use on this or that page. We will keep on flipping through the pages of this journal, and this is now the beginning of the second signature. this is the end of the second signature, and here is a little notebook that I created using the leftover papers from the collection, as well as some of the leftover papers which were simply tea stained. In the back, I have a little pocket that I have created with just a tiny piece of paper, and then there is a journaling card that goes in there. I have created my own label with a strip of paper, and then I stamped a number on it. For binding the pages of this notebook, I have used just a thread and a needle and stitched, I think it's called a blanket stitch there at the top. So I think it looks nice and pretty. And I have added some paper circles to the ends of those threads. In the front of my notebook cover, I have another piece of paper with some braids in it. I have stitched around the edges of that paper, have added thin piece of gold foiled paper in there for the added accent, used a gold foiled die cut frame. These are all stamps from Tim Holtz, some more labels that I have created on my own, and this gold foiled word notes was created with the help of the hot foil embossing machine that I got from an estate sale, and I was testing it, so I think it looks really nice in here. So that's one of the notebooks that I am glad that I have created, and I will add it to this journal. Now that's the beginning of the third and the last signature. And on the first page, I have a little magnetized clip, or just a paper embellishment. These circles are punched out from the sheets which are included in the paper collection. Then I used a strip of leftover paper, and I glued some magnetic strips between the pattern paper circles and another paper circles that I used for covering the reverse side of these circles here. So now this embellishment or an additional paper holder can be mounted on top of the page, and it makes it look even better. Let's keep on flipping through the pages. In the center of this third signature, there is one more of those pockets, but now I didn't glue both of these sides. I have glued the two short sides and then created a side pocket here with another card. And then I have used this pocket from the paper collection and glued it down on top because it matched the size of that paper layer nicely. And there is another off-cut piece of paper which turned into a journaling card, and it is stored now in that pocket there. And that's the end of it. These are the 3 signatures that my journal has. I can now close it down. If you like this journal and you want to know how it was created, please keep on watching the video tutorial. See you soon. I have a certain plan for the cover of the journal. So first of all, I have 2 pieces of chipboard. And this is Graphics medium weight chipboard. Both of the pieces measure the same, and they are 8 3/4 by 5 7/8. I have also printed 2 page designs from the Gothic Butterflies digital paper kit from Victoria Designs. These are 2 of the patterns that I chose. I printed them with borders on thin printing paper, and that's the paper that I chose. I'm going to wrap the chipboard with these papers, and I will use, I think, glue stick for that, because I do have a plan of sewing around the edges of the cover at a later stage, so I hope that glue stick will be just enough to hold the paper. And since it's thin, again, I think it should work fine. So I'm going to apply glue to the whole surface of the chipboard and then attach it to the paper, leaving about 3/4 to 1 inch wide flaps on all 4 sides. I trimmed the excess paper, and this is what we have for now. I'm not yet wrapping the flaps around the edges of the chipboard. I want to wait with it a little bit till I have a better idea of how I want my cover to look like. And now I want to move on to the outer spine of the journal, to which both of the covers will be attached. For this spine, I want to use a piece of corduroy. I have a piece which is, as you can see, about 3/4 of an inch larger than the paper piece that I have here on all 4 sides. And the paper piece is just plain cardstock, not printing paper cardstock, but not a very thick one either. And it measures 8 3/4 by 2 inches. You can also see the measurements in centimeters. In the back here, I have just marked the center on the long side, which is 4 3/8 of an inch away from either top or bottom. And I have also marked the center along the narrow side. And I also have guidelines which are 1 inch away from the top and bottom. I am not sure if I am going to use them after all for any embellishments of the spine, but I have them for now, and I thought I'd mention them to you as well. So I'm going right now to glue this piece down onto the fabric, and again I'm going to use glue stick. I will also iron the piece later on to make sure that the glue sticks better to the fabric. Now I want to take a ruler and to kind of prolong the edge line of the cardstock onto the fabric, just like so. And now I will use my scissors and cut along those lines, like so. And then apply glue onto the cardstock for folding these flaps at the top and at the bottom. And I will iron them one more time. I'm going to cut the excess fabric at the top and at the bottom like so at a slight angle. And now we'll get back to my covers. I want to first of all trim the corners. Make sure that you don't trim the paper right next to the corner of the chipboard and you leave some of the paper there for being able to cover the corner of the chipboard itself. Okay, so here are both of my covers. This is going to be the front cover and this one is going to be the back. I will take my distress ink and distress the edges of both covers now. Now, if you want to add any labels that you'd like to stitch on to the back cover, do it now while you still have only one simple layer to work with. I think I'm going to stitch my label to the back, and it's done. Let's put the covers aside and get back to our outer spine. I want to add some stitching and some beads and some twill tape to the spine. Now the twill tape will be stitched onto the spine along its edges, and actually for the twill tape, which in my case is 1 inch wide, you're welcome just to take any 1 inch ribbon that you'd like to use on this project. I will show the twill tape to you closer. That's the texture that it has, and I think I'm not really sure what it is used for in professional sewing, but I like to use it for embellishing my journals and also for the closures on the covers. It works well. I just want to show you an idea of how I do it, and you're welcome to use the supplies that you have and maybe come up with something else. So I have created those lines that I previously showed you, the one which was 1 inch away from the top and bottom, and then one in the very center of the cardstock piece. So now if I want to attach the twill tape, well, of course it will be attached on the outside, but I'm just thinking about the measurements out loud, and I will put the twill tape pieces that I have on the inside of the spine for now, just to give you a better notion of what I have in mind. So my twill tape will go like that on the spine, and I made sure that I added more guidelines. The stitching that I'm going to add to the spine will be a decorative one, and for stitching it really precisely, we will need to do some more measuring. So the first set of lines that we're going to mark will be at 1/4 of an inch away from each other, and also from the edges of the cardstock piece on the left and on the right, like so. So we'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 marks that we're going to sketch on our paper. I'll do the same on this side, just like so. And I'm actually going to connect them like that. So we have a grid now in the back of our journal spine. Now, before I move to the next set of guidelines, and marks, I want to take a pen of another color and mark the lines which were 1 inch away from each other that we have created before, just so that I don't mix them up with the next lines that we are about to create now. So I will take a red pen and just separate them from the rest of the pencil lines. Now I'm going to create more lines for further stitching that we're going to do, and I will start from the first red guideline. I will mark one at 1/2 inch, then at 1.5, 2 and 2.5, then at 4 1/4, 4 3/4, 5 1/4, and 6.5. And I will repeat them on the opposite side so that I can connect both of the marks together and make sure that I have very straight horizontal lines later on. Okay, I will connect them. For creating patterns, you really need measurements. So let's get to it now. You will need your poking tool. Here we go. And I also use this piercing mat under the piece of fabric and paper that I'm going to poke through. So we are going to poke 6 holes on each horizontal line that we have. I'm poking here 1, 2, 3. Then on the central one, I do not poke any holes, and then I keep on going. 4, 5, 6. Okay, so let's keep on going up to the 3rd red line. Now I will not poke any holes along the line which is right in the middle. I will keep on going from the 4th red line up to the very end. At the end, we will have 6 columns of holes and an even number of rows. We have 14 rows and 6 columns of holes. Next, I'm going to take my twill tape pieces and apply glue to each one of them. Not all the way till the very edges, but somewhere in the center, so that I know that they will glue down nicely. And now these lines that, by the way, I prolonged onto the fabric, and I'm talking now about the red lines, will help me line everything up and make sure that I glue them down in the correct places. And now I will take this to my sewing machine. This is what I have. Let's choose which colors of thread we will want to use for our decorative stitching. So I have printed the pages for my journal, at least the patterned ones from the kit, and I think I will go with 2 colors of the threads for the decorative stitching on the spine. I will use this dusty pink and this silver gray. Before we actually get to stitching, let's make sure that we repoke the holes which happen to be in the centers of the twill tapes at the top and at the bottom of the spine. 1, 2, 3, and then 1, 2, 3. And the same thing here, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Now we can see them on this side as well, and I think that I will repoke the ones which are close to the edges too, just because it will be easier for me to see them. Yeah, something like that. Let's do it on the other end as well. And now I think we're good. I took a thread which is about 40 inches long. I think it will be enough. If not, we will connect another thread to the existing one. So I will start with my dusty pink color, and I will start from the top hole from the right hand side. I will thread it through, and I will take a clip and hold thread on the fabric piece that I'm working with. And then I will have stitches that look like X's or crosses at each one of the columns on the left and on the right hand side. It's not important how the back will look like. The most important thing is that at the end of the process you will have 2 lines of X's in this row and this row. I think I will tie my thread here. So to tie a thread, you just want to make sure that you secure it and tie it with some of the threads that you have already stitched in your pattern. Now I will take another piece of thread which is 40 inches long like before, because the previous 40 inches were enough just to stitch this top part on the spine. Let's also make sure that we take care of the thread tail that we had left at the top. I'm done with my first color and do sets of cross stitching, very exaggerated one I would say, in dusty pink color. So now we have to create another column of stitching with our second color. So I start from this hole right here, and our stitch in the gray color will be of another shape. It will be a very stretched looking one, like so, and it will go from the top down to the bottom between the pink cross stitching rows. Okay, so I'm done with the stitching in pink and gray. Now I think I want to add some beads here in the center, so I have just a beige string for my next thing that I want to do. So I think you can decide where exactly you want to have beads, and I'm going to use the beads of the size 6 in gold. I will stitch them, I think, in here. So I will first of all make sure that I leave a tail at the top. Okay, and now I will string my bead and go back through that same hole in there. Let's see how it looks like. Do we want to have it like so? Let's make sure that we don't twist the string. Yeah, I think it's fine. So I will keep on going. And I still have those lines in the back, so I can see where I need to poke the next hole. And I just want to make sure that I don't have any knots. I'll take the next bead and again go back through the same hole and attach this second bead here. It looks nice. Yeah, so I will keep on going and get back to you once I'm done. I think this is enough for me. If you want to add more, you are welcome. This way you will be able to create a unique pattern that only you will have on the spine of this journal. But I think I'm done, and I will secure the thread as usual in the back. Make sure that I tie nice and secure knots, and then we will attach the spine to the covers. I decided that I want to stitch along the top and bottom edges of the spine first, and then something is missing here. So what are our options? We can stamp something, we can maybe embroider something, we can also add more beads, maybe in a certain pattern or way, and we can also take a paper embellishment and use it on the spine, or even a metal one if you have one. But I decided to go with something from the paper collection. So there were a few sizes of different butterflies. I chose this one, and I already distressed around the edges. And now if I only glue the butterfly like that, it might be that over time, since it will not have any support behind the wings, it can either tear or can just peel off. I could also stitch around all the edges and like attach it to the spine completely, but the edges are not that simple to stitch around. So I hope that what I'm going to do will be okay. So I have a piece of that same pink material that I used. Oh, sorry, I was out of focus. So I have a piece of that pink material, corduroy, that we used for wrapping up the cardstock piece for the spine. And I also have a leftover piece of simple cotton fabric from one of the previous projects. I think I want to take this butterfly and first of all just glue it down in the middle to the layer of corduroy, and then I want to take this piece of fabric and glue it in the middle again. And now I want to use my really good sharp scissors that will help me cut around the edges of the butterfly. And I want to leave a border of about maybe 1/8 of an inch, maybe a little bit less, all the way around, so that we'll make sure that even though we are not going to stitch the wings of the butterfly all the way down to the spine, it will still have some kind of the support behind them, and it will also create interesting layering and dimension on our spine. So I'm now going to find the center. Oh, let's use some clips for folding the flaps in, because then we will better see where the middle of this section of the spine is. Okay, I will fold at the top and at the bottom, and I think it will be good enough to hold it in place. So now I also can see where the center goes because I stitched the beads in there. I will attach my butterfly here, and now I'm going to take this whole piece to the sewing machine and add the stitching along the butterfly's body only right here, and also, as I previously mentioned, at the top and at the bottom of the piece. And I will be back to show it to you. Okay, so here we go, the stitching at the top and at the bottom. Don't forget to either tie double knots after you pull the threads to the back, or just secure the threads with a little bit of glue. And then the butterfly has also been stitched in the center. I have added some glue to the threads here in the back as well. Now I think that I want to add a little bit more glue between the wings of the paper butterfly and the first layer of fabric, and attach them a little bit more, just to make sure that they really are not that fragile. The spine is finally done. We can move to attaching the covers. It will be a good idea for us to distress the edges of this piece, because then we will better see where exactly the covers need to be glued down. We need to apply the glue about 1/2 inch in from this edge of the cover that will be close to the spine. For some reason I just prefer to apply the glue onto the paper layer and not to the fabric. I find it easier. Let's take this cover, and it's our front cover here, and I will line this up with that distressed inked line on the fabric fold and glue this whole thing down. I will do the same on the other side. Set this piece aside to dry. Once it's dry, I will take it to my sewing machine and I will stitch along these edges, which are close to the spine, right on top of the chipboard. Now, you don't have to add stitching, but I just like how it looks on my projects, so that's what I do. Here, my cover is looking like this at a current stage. I have added stitching. I have pulled out the thread tails to the inside of the cover and secured them with a bead of glue just along the stitching. Now, I also think that it's a good time to take something round and try and shape our spine a little bit better. I also have this super small piece of pink leather, and I want to use it here on the spine at the top. So I think I'm going to glue it down and then stitch again here on top just to make sure that it stays there in place. Now I think I'm quite satisfied with how it looks. I want to add flaps at the top, at the bottom, and on the side so that they cover all of the pages and the journal looks more like a folder. For creating the flaps, I am going to use a lightweight chipboard that you find on cereal boxes, and that's the cereal box that I'm going to upcycle. And I have here two pieces that will serve as a top and the bottom flap, and I'm going to also explain a few more things to you before I prepare the flap for the long side. So the pieces of chipboard that I have here measure 5.5 inches by 5, and I wrote here bendy side because for us it is important. I want the bendy side to be here so that over time these chipboard pieces don't weirdly fold or break, although I am going to cover them on the outside with the same fabric that we used on the spine, and on the inside they will have paper. When I'm saying that this is the bandy side, I'm sure you heard about the grains of the paper, so I have here the second half of the cereal box that I used for creating these pieces. So this piece is a great example that I want to use for showing you what I mean exactly. So you can see that if I bend it this way, it bends really flexibly and I don't have any problem. But if I'm trying to bend it this way, it just doesn't cooperate really. It just doesn't. And if I will keep on pushing, I will have a very ugly fold right here in the middle. So when you cut your pieces for the shorter flaps, make sure that the bandy side will be the one that will measure 5 inches each time. Okay, and then let's put it aside for now. And then you will trim it to 5.5 on the side, which is not flexible. Then you will take your scoreboard, and on the colorful side and the 5-inch side also being at the top, you will score at 1 inch and at 3 inches. Then you will flip it to the plain side, and you will score at every 1/8 of an inch between the 1 inch mark and the 3 inch mark. And you will also round the corners on the side, which is 5.5 inches long. And that's what you're going to do. The very same thing with both of the pieces. Now we get to the longer piece that we're going to need for our project. And again, this is the bandy side, but as you can see, I will want this flap to be bendable on this side just as it goes, but it's not long enough for me to use. It is only, how long? About 7.5 inches, and I will need 8.5 for my journal. So what I'm going to do is this. I will first of all trim it to 5 inches like that. Now this side is still bending nicely, okay? And then I will measure. So I have here 7.5 and I need 8.5. So that means that I need to check here. I will trim from here 1 inch strip and then shorten it to 5 inches long, like this. Now they both bend the same way, and I just need to connect them together. And for that, I am going to use painter's tape. I'm going to round the corners on one of the long sides of this piece as well. And I'm going to score this piece the same way as I scored the smaller flaps. On the 5-inch side, I'm going to score it 1 inch at 3 inches. And then I will flip it to the plain side facing up, and then I will score on the plain side at every 1/8 of an inch from the mark of 1 inch to the mark of 3 inches. With the plain side facing up, you will fold along that very first score line and have your 1 inch flap. And then on this side, you will also fold along the very first score line. You can use the ruler for this as well, but that's what we are going to have. Now we need to get a 45-degree cut on these flaps that will help us to attach each one of the pieces to the inside of our cover. And we do this so that we don't have any excess of the chipboard in terms of thickness and bulk. I will need some more of that pink fabric that I used on the spine. And I'm going to cover my pieces with this fabric. Now, I don't need it to go all the way to the edge of the 1-inch wide flap on this side. I need it to go about halfway in, but I also need enough of the fabric to be able to wrap it around the edges of the chipboard piece. Since this side to which I'm going to apply the glue is very shiny with the printed images on it, and I don't think that the glue stick will do the job even if I'm ironing it. I just want to be sure that the fabric will nicely attach to the printed chipboard here. So I am going to open a new bottle of my beacon glue that, as a matter of fact, I rarely use, and I will start to apply it somewhere from the half of this 1-inch wide flap, just so that I know that it is covered in there, and then I can hold it by the area which is not covered by glue and apply it to the rest of the area there. To be able to wrap the fabric around these corners, I'm going to cut. First of all, let's trim a little bit more. I think it's too much. Okay, I'm going to cut a bit away from the place where the curve starts on this side and also on this side. And as you can see, I'm not going all the way to the edge of the chipboard. And then I'm going to cut out little triangles here, like so. And I will do the same thing next to this corner. We're going to see, so you see from where to where you need to apply the glue here to be able to glue down the super easy flap on this side. And that's what we will do first of all. Now we can also glue down the little triangles and wrap our corner. You might need to use your bone folder for that. It will just be easier. You will be gluing the triangle somewhere in the center first, and when you glue it down, just make sure that you kind of pulling it towards the center of the chipboard piece, towards this part of it. Okay, so now you have this corner ready, and we'll do the same on this side. That's the second corner. Next, I'm going to apply glue in this area and fold this section over. Make sure that it glues down nicely. Same thing on this side. Fold and use your bone folder if you need to. Make sure that we glue it down, okay? And now we will have to trim from this corner so that we have less of the fabric bulk in there. Before you glue the flap down, it might be worth adding just a bit of glue to that very corner where both of the corners will kind of meet once you fold everything. Okay, just for the fabric to stick nicer to the chipboard. And then we will add more glue and fold this section of the fabric and glue it down to our chipboard. Already looks nice. And we'll do the same on this side. Just make sure that you use your nice sharp scissors. This is how you are going to cover with the material of your choice 3 flaps that we have prepared from a lightweight chipboard. We are going to cover this section now with the plain paper, and then we're going to stitch along the edges here and maybe even here. Again, we are going to distress the edges for the same look, first of all, that we had on the spine, and also for better visibility of all the folds before we add the stitching. My flaps are ready for the next step, which will be covering them with paper. Now with the paper we will do the same thing, and again please mind the more flexible bandy side on the pattern paper that you are going to use for the reverse of the flaps. You're going to cut 2 pieces of the same size, which will be 5 3/8 by 4.5. And for this flap, you are going to need a piece that will be 4.5 inches by 8 3/4. I have prepared my papers for matting the inside of each one of the flaps. That's the pattern that I chose for the smaller flaps, and that's the one for the bigger one. Make sure that you position the paper correctly, okay, because one of the flaps will fold out up and one of the flaps will fold out down. That's important because you have to round the corners the same way as you did on the base flaps. And now here I need to round the corners at the bottom. We're also going to round our corners here. Rounded the corners of our papers and we have them ready. Now I want to distress the edges of the papers, and as I might have mentioned, I would like to also distress the edges of the fabric side of the flap. Now I did that, and I want to trim the corners on this side, so I'm going to line up the paper on top of the flap, making sure that I have even borders on 3 sides there. And then I'm going to mark with a pencil where I want to cut the corner off, and it will be, I can see where the edge of the chipboard goes under the paper, so I can make a tick mark about the same distance away that I have the borders here, so that when I trim the corner along those marks, I really have the border which seems the same as the rest of the borders are. And I will do the same thing on the opposite side right here. I will distress the edges of the paper on the cut off corners, and I will glue this paper piece down to the flap, making sure that I use a good amount of glue. Let it dry before you actually stitch around the edges. We will do the same things with the second flap and the third flap. And once I'm done stitching, I will get back to you to show the result. If you plan to add any embellishments, any maybe metal pieces or labels that you would like to stitch to these spines of the flaps, do it before you cover them on the inside with the paper, because you of course will want to cover all the stitching or the prongs of the breads or anything else that you will use for adding your additional elements. Once you have done stitching your flaps and the glue has dried, you will gently refold the flaps we have our flaps ready, and I was thinking about the closure that I want to use for my journal, and I decided to go with the simplest one, the ribbon. So I have created a mark that will help me align up the ribbon in the correct place on the front of my cover, and then on the inside of the back cover as well. This mark is at 4 3/8 of an inch from either top or bottom of your page. In my case, each one of the pieces is 18 inches long, and I'm attaching the first one onto the front of the cover, and then the second one will be attached in the back on the inside. What I'm going to do next is I will add the stitching to the back cover only around the remaining 3 edges. Here we go. I stitched around 3 sides on the back cover. Now I will use my glue to glue down the flaps on the inside of the back cover. I think I'm going to start with the long flap, and I will fold. The flaps are fully dry now, and I will fold the flap like so. And then first of all, I will see where exactly I'm going to glue it down. It will help you, without adding the glue first, it will help you see how much space you need to leave at the top and at the bottom, since this flap that we have created is a little bit shorter than the cover of our future album. So right now I'm going to add the glue and line this fold up with the edge of the cover, leaving maybe about 1/16 of an inch between them, between both of the edges like so. I will just make sure that I have covered the stitching. Now when it's almost dry, I will unfold this flap and repeat the process for attaching each one of the top and the bottom flaps, lining up the sides of the flaps together, making sure that they meet up nicely in the corner, and the angled corners of the flaps will help us do that. While the glue is drying, let's work on the inner binding, which will actually hold the pages of our journal. I have here a piece of plain white cardstock, and this piece measures, let me find it, 8.5 by 6. I have scored it at 2 inches on the left and the right side. And then, as usual, for the flexibility of the spine, I have scored the space between two of the first score lines at every 1/8 of an inch. Now, for attaching the signatures, I will use 3 hole pamphlet stitch, and I have already pre-marked the places for the future holes, and they are at, so each one of these lines is at 2 1/4, 4 1/4, and at 6 1/4 of an inch from each one of the top corners of the paper piece. I have sketched 3 horizontal lines, and then my journal will have 3 signatures, and there will be 1/2 inch spacing between each one of the signatures. So if you're going to measure from the top left corner of your cardstock, the holes will be at 2.5, 3, and 3.5 of an inch. Okay, so I made the marks at the top of the future spine and at the bottom, and then I was able to mark the actual holes for creating my stitch at the intersection of those lines. For covering the inside of the binding piece, I will use a piece of cotton, and this one is long enough so that I can wrap it around the edges of the cardstock at the top and at the bottom, and it's also wide enough to cover the 2 inch spacing in the center, and also stand about maybe 1/2 inch away from the folds on each side. So altogether, this piece in my case is about 11 inches by 3 inches. And I'm going to use a glue stick for gluing it down to the paper, and then I will iron it right away to make sure that the glue sticks nicely. Now I want to stitch as usual at the top and at the bottom to secure this piece of fabric on top of the paper, like so. top and bottom. I think I want to add just some extra line of stitching along the long edges of the fabric, but the stitching will not go too close to the fold itself because I don't want it to be visible anywhere. I plan to cover it later on with another piece of paper on top that we're going to glue to the inside of the front and back covers. I hope this makes sense. So I'm just going to add more stitching here and here. And it's done. Now I think I can sleep tight at night. I will now poke through the holes that I marked. We need to create some guidelines that will be 2 inches away from the edges of the lining paper that we used here on the spine. So the lines stand exactly 2 inches away from the edges of this white paper in the center. And you don't need the line to go from the very top of the page to the very bottom, just somewhere here in the center, so that later on you can line the edges of your binding with those guidelines and make sure that you have it all nicely centered. Okay, so that's something that I wanted to say before we continue working on our flaps right here. I want to add some brads for securing the flaps on the cover. I will first create a super faint pencil line, which will be 3/8 of an inch away from the edge of the cover. And I think I can do it on all 3 sides already, so that we don't get back to it. The line is very, very faint because I will have to erase it later on once I'm done attaching the brads. And now I will measure 1 1/4 of an inch and make a tick mark on that previous guideline. Now the distance between both of those is 3.5 inches. So at 1 3/4 of an inch, I will make another tick mark. These measurements are correct for the short flaps. Here on the long flap, we will also mark 1 1/4 inch away on that guideline from the top and the bottom corners. And in between, I think there is 6 1/4 inch in between. So that means that at 3 1/8, I will mark in the center. This will be a place for the brad that will also additionally secure our ribbon in place. And then here, I think I will just mark about 1.5 of an inch away from the tick mark right here. Okay, so I have 5 tick marks for poking the holes, and that's what I'm going to do now. The prongs of the brads, when you flatten them on the inside of the cover, they will go parallel to the edges of the flaps. I want us to get back to the inner binding and line it up now between the guidelines that we have created. And also make sure that you have even spacing at the top and at the bottom from the edges of the cover itself. And now I want you to use either a bone folder or just your fingernail for embossing the edges of the flaps on the paper flap, like so. We want to see where exactly we will have to trim the paper flap so that we don't create more bulk on this cover. Now that I have the outlines visible, I can cut out those pieces. While you hold this piece like so, just measure the area which is left in here. In my case, it's about 2 7/8 of an inch by, well, let's say 6.5. So I will take the leftover piece from that cereal box and I will cut an additional rectangle and level up everything so that when I glue an additional paper on top, I don't have to worry about it sinking down. And then I think we can put the whole cover aside for now while we think about the way of embellishing our front cover. I have printed my pages from the digital paper collection. There are 24 page designs for your journaling pages. I printed them on both sides. That's why I have 12 double-sided folded sheets in here. I just love the butterflies, and I know the paper collection is called Gothic Butterflies. My Gothic journal will have a lot of pink. That's how I felt about it. I just loved the shades of purple and dark pink and gray, and I don't know, like all I saw there was more pink than any other color. So I have printed my pages, and yeah, I have 12 of them here. Then the paper collection also had these beautiful file folder page designs. There are 3 of them. So I have printed and cut out those guys. And I made sure that I printed just some neutral background in the back, so they're not double layered. They're just printed on both sides, and usually for my pages I use regular printing paper or something rather thin, while for the rest of the ephemera pieces, like the cutouts and journaling cards and labels and other elements, I use cardstock. My journal will have 3 signatures. I think that will work good in terms of the number of page designs that I have. And of course, as usual, I will have some tea-stained papers in each one of the signatures, as well as some of these vintage telephone conversation reporting forms, and some graph papers in gray color I was able to find. I think it will look nice with the rest of the color tones of this collection. I also have some really tiny graph paper sheets from another notebook that I had in my stash, and I will just mix them up and build my 3 signatures from the selection of the papers that I have here. I might add some book pages as well. I will see how it goes. Now my signatures are currently assembled and stitched down to the inner spine of the journal that we have prepared earlier in this tutorial using 3-hole pamphlet stitch. I have stenciled on some of the tea stain pages as well as other pages too, and you can see that I have embellished my pages as well with different die cut pieces and ephemera pieces from the digital collection that we're working with today. I do not film the process of embellishing the pages because it takes me a very long time, but I will show you each one of the pages closer in the overview part of this tutorial. I will use my glue and attach the inner spine with the signatures stitched to it to the main cover of the journal by the outer flaps of this piece. So that I am more comfortable doing this, I will remove that journaling card from the pocket on the first page. And now everything I do is really look at the guidelines that we have previously created, and they are 2 inches away from the edge of the chipboard covers. And I am going to apply the glue to each one of the flaps and glue them down to the inside of the back and front cover of my journal. Not only I'm looking at the guideline, which I have created, the vertical one on the inside of the back cover right now, but also I want to make sure that I have equal spacing from the pages of the journal to the edge of the spine of my book at the top and at the bottom. So that's one more thing that you might pay attention to when you glue your signatures down to the cover. Once this flap will be dry, we will be able to work on the second flap here. And before I will apply the glue there, I want to snip some more of this flap's corners. I will do it at a very slight angle and up to the fold right here. Again, just slight angle and not completely up to the fold, about maybe 1/4 of an inch away from where the actual fold starts, like so. And let's just make sure that our flap here is now attached to the cover. I think it is, so I can add the glue now to this flap and glue it down along that guideline, the vertical one that I have on the inside of the front cover. And when I'm attaching this flap to the inside of the front cover, you can see that I am holding the signatures Let's wait till it dries. Make sure that you play a little bit with the inner spine and the outer spine of your journal to make sure that they fit nicely together. It's time to think about the front cover of our journal. I have prepared a few pieces that I would like to use for the front. And this piece, for example, includes another piece of corduroy fabric that I used on the spine and on the flaps here. I stitched a piece of this pattern paper from the collection to the fabric, and that piece of the paper measures 4 1/8 in my case by about 7 3/8. It really depends on what you will have. I think this was just a leftover piece, so I decided to go with it. I also want to secure the ribbon that I have glued down to the cover in the front with a little brad. I think I'm going to glue down the fabric right on top of the paper cover. I will also add more brads in the corners, like so. I have 4 of them in each one of the corners to secure the fabric and the paper to the chipboard cover. Now I have also cut out a few more elements from the paper collection, and I have added some gold foiled circles. This is how I saw the cover of this journal coming together. I have also cut out this butterfly from the ephemera sheets, and I backed it with a piece of that corduroy fabric because I want to stitch it to the paper layer right here, maybe here even. I haven't thought about it yet. Once I stitch the butterfly to the paper, I will then glue everything down to the front of the cover like so. I think that I will add it at an angle still and not in the very center. So I have added just a little bead of glue to the center of that butterfly to hold it in place while I stitch it down to the paper layer. Okay, now it is stitched to the paper layer underneath, and that's the little stitching line in the back. Now I'm going to apply the glue to the whole area in the back and glue all of the elements together to my front cover. And this is how it looks so far. I added another brad to the side of the label there. I felt like I wanted to do that. We can move on to embellishing the insides of the front and back covers. On the inside of the back cover, I want to have a place for a few pencils, maybe pens and a ruler. I have never done that before, but this is what I want to try and do now. So you can witness either my success or failure, I guess. So for creating this pen's holder, I have taken a piece of lightweight chipboard. I have glued this chipboard piece to a piece of pattern paper from the collection, making sure that I leave little borders for wrapping them around the edges of the chipboard later on. Now I also made the marks on the long edges of the chipboard piece, and they are in the center of each one of the long sides. which is 4¼ inch away from either top or bottom. And you will also be able to see the measurement in centimeters there. So now I want to connect both of those tick marks and create a line in the back of this chipboard piece so that I know where I will have to attach a strip of fabric for securing an elastic that I'm going to stitch to the chipboard and paper layers in the front. I have a leftover piece of the fabric from one of the previous projects. I will need to trim it to the same width as the width of our chipboard piece and glue it down on top of that line that we have created in the center. You can use either tacky glue or fabric tack for that purpose. I will wrap this chipboard piece with the pattern paper. I want to prepare a piece of elastic that I have here. That's the one I'm going to use. It is 1/2 inch wide. It is of a white color. If you want, you could probably use some alcohol inks or distress ink sprays before you stitch it down. I think I will go with plain white this time. So I'm going, first of all, to secure this elastic by the side right here, and I will use the glue again for doing it. I think I want to have here a ruler, maybe some pencils and some pens. So I have prepared a few pencils here. These are not necessarily the ones that I'm going to use in this journal, but for measuring the width of the elastic that will be needed for holding this pencil, I'm going to use these ones. About 1/4 inch from the edge of the chipboard piece, I'm going to stitch the elastic first of all, and this will secure it in place, and then I will start to measure further the width of the spaces for the next pencils and pens. Okay, here we go. This is the first stitch that we have created. This is how it looks in the back. I have cut off the excess thread and just tied double knots to secure everything on this side. I think I will have the ruler somewhere in here, so I will put it there and then make a slight mark with a pencil and stitch the elastic to the chipboard on top of that line. And I do want to make sure that I don't move the elastic too much from where it needs to be. So maybe on this side I will secure it with a bulldog clip, just to make sure that we're still keeping to the center of this piece. So I'm going to stitch right here and get back. Once again, I pulled the tails of the threads to the back, tied double knots, and let's now trim the excess. Okay, so that's the place for the ruler. We can keep on going. We can now measure the next place for let's say a pencil. And once again, I just want to mark slightly where the stitching will have to be. Okay, and if I don't want to do it every time, let's measure now what's the distance that we have between the stitches here. It's about 3/4 of an inch, so I can just keep on marking again and again, right, and stitch there. And maybe when you stitch, don't keep the elastic completely flat on the chipboard. When you stitch, maybe try to add just a little bit to the thickness of the pencil or the pen, which is going to be there. So I'm going to secure it like that, and again just clip it with a bulldog clip from this side, and then take it to my sewing machine and stitch on top of the marked line. So this is how our next stitched pencil spot looks like. I will keep on doing the same for the next 3 spots. The same way, I will make sure that I add just some more of the elastic before I stitch. Okay, here I have a few spots ready. Some were more successful than others. I'm going to stitch one more spot and get back. Here we go. Let's try it. I think it works. So let's leave another spot for a chubby pen. Okay. So I will need to stitch right here. Again, about maybe 1/4 inch or a bit more from the edge of the chipboard, and I will get back. Since it was already the last spot for a pen, I made sure that I stitched the elastic to the chipboard in the back when it was folded over. Now I can cut off the excess of the elastic that I had, and the next step for me would be to stitch around the edges of the whole piece. I usually stitch about 1/8 of an inch away from the edge. It's done now. Not only the stitching has here a decorative function, but it also makes sure that we even better secured the elastic onto the chipboard piece. So I will add a piece of painter's tape to secure the tails of the threads in the back of this piece. And I am sure that you also understand why we added that piece of fabric in there, to make sure that our stitches are secure. And now I think we are ready to add a pretty decent amount of glue to the back of this panel and glue it down between the flaps in the back cover of our journal, like so. Once I glue this piece down, I think I'm going to take a few heavy books and put them on top of this panel, just to make sure that everything gets glued down nicely in the end. And then we will keep on working on the inside of the front cover. For embellishing the inside of the front cover, we will also use a piece of lightweight chipboard that measures 5 5/8 by 8.5, and we're going to cover it with the printed digital paper from the kit. That's the page design that I chose. And I also want to create clear pockets on this panel. I like to use clear pockets. I use thin acetate for creating them. I have a pack of transparency film sheets right here. There are also lots of cut-offs, as you can see. I would suggest that you use a thinner acetate for this purpose. And for embellishing these clear pockets so that they're more interesting than just clear, I decided to use the same seam binding that I used for the closures of my notebook. And that's the roll of light gray seam binding ribbon that I have. So I have just wrapped the ribbon around one edge of the acetate piece and stitched the ribbon onto the acetate to make sure that it stays in place. I did it for both of the pieces, and as you can see, one of the pieces is wider than the other. So the wider one measures 2 1/4 by 8.5. And the narrower one measures 1 1/4 by also 8.5. We're going to add eyelets to the edge of the acetate right on top of the ribbon. So first of all, we're going to measure the center point on top of the ribbon. I have already marked the place where I will set an eyelet, but it's going to be at 4 1/4 from either of the edges of your acetate. Make sure that you don't include the ribbon into your calculations. I have left some tails of that ribbon so that I could wrap them around the lightweight chipboard panel when I attach them to it so that it looks better on the edges. I am going, first of all, to add an eyelet to the narrower piece right there. Like that. And now we need to do another little something before we add an eyelet to this edge of the wider acetate piece that we have. And for that, we first need to overlap our both pieces by about 1/4 inch, because that's, well, about that width is the area covered by the ribbon. If you don't want to do it with the ribbon, it will be easier to cover it with simple printed paper of any designs that you can choose from the collection. You can also use washi tape for that. But I decided to go with the ribbon. I don't want both of the pockets to go all the way to the edge of the paper panel right here, because first of all, I think it's unnecessary in terms of the thickness of all the layers that we're going to have here in such case, and also because it will be like less transparent there if both of them overlap all the way. So I do want to have a larger pocket at the bottom, and then I want to have 2 pockets at the top. So that's why I'm going to connect both of those acetate pieces together and overlap them just where the edge of the ribbon ends and I'm going to use a bulldog clip for holding them together. And again, I'm just trying to make sure that at least I'm doing it as straight as I can so that all of the edges stay straight at the top and at the bottom. Okay, and now when I have that done, I am going to punch a hole in there in both of the acetate pieces. Let's cut this a little bit off using scissors. And now I'm going to put an eyelet through the edge of the first layer of acetate, and it will also go through the second layer of acetate right there. And let's try to hold it in place, and then set that eyelet in there like so. Can be a little bit tricky, so just take your time. Now both of these acetate pieces are connected together, and we can keep on attaching them to our paper panel and lightweight chipboard panel. So I'm going to first of all use the bulldog clips for holding the acetate panels down on top of the paper, and now I can flip it to the back side and add some glue in order to secure the tails of the ribbon. I will now take the whole panel to my sewing machine and stitch around the edges of it and get back to show you the result. It is now finished. I stitched around this panel. That's how the back looks like. Sorry about the glare. So we have a wider pocket here at the bottom, and also two smaller pockets at the top, so you can put smaller pieces of ephemera into the top pocket and add maybe a larger journaling card or just a few pieces of folded paper to the pocket at the bottom. We're now ready to glue this panel to the inside of our front cover of the journal. And when you are gluing it down to the cover, I suggest that you use some chipboard pieces on both the inside and the outside of the cover and hold them with the clips along the edges there till the glue gets fully dry. I have now removed the paper clips, checking out to see that everything glued down together good. And I think that now I can add some of the cards that I have created with the help of the dies that I had, and I used the pattern paper from the collection. I think this, as a matter of fact, completes our tutorial. There is one more thing that I wanted to do. Now when I know how long these ribbons that I used for the closure really have to be, I think I will trim some of them, something like that maybe. And I have die cut 4 circles out of the pink leather piece that I had left, and I used the same piece here at the spine. So I'm just going to glue 2 of each of those pieces at the edge of the ribbon like so. I think it will look nice, and of course it will match the color of my journal. And that will then complete our tutorial. I hope it gives you some ideas and thoughts on how you can use this gorgeous paper collection from Victoria Designs. If you have any questions, please drop them in the comments. I will do my best as usual to get back to you with the answers. See you all soon. Happy crafting. Bye.
Oh, and by the way, my business partner Jay told me repeatedly that there was such an empty spot over there when I'm filming my tutorials, and he's right. He said, put a plant there or anything, and I did that, and I didn't think this through because how am I going to be able to open these drawers now?